beneficiary and all the others, but inside the final furlong, he's getting set to make it 4 for 4 in Miami Gardens. He was the man, he is the man, and nobody's beat him yet. Here's Mr. Jordan, an easy winner of the Millions Classic Preview, wrapped up by Edgard Zayas and 6 in front.
What a call there by track announcer Pete Aiello, and a fine end to the 8 stakes yesterday right here at Gulfstream Park West. A day begins anew here with Acacia Courtney and Jason Blewett, and things have settled down here in Miami Gardens. Obviously had the big Sunshine Millions dress rehearsal, followed by a humongous football game down the block at Hard Rock Stadium, but we're about to ramp up again with another 11-race card.
We do have 11 races coming up today. We have carryovers in the Super High 5 and in the Rainbow 6, but as you said, a big day yesterday with the Sunshine Millions preview. Mr. Jordan, ultra impressive, as you heard in Pete's call, making it 4 for 4 at Gulfstream Park West, and trainer Eddie Plisa saying he'll probably train up to the Sunshine Millions Classic.
103 buyer for that effort, impressive. And perhaps there was some, at least my concern, even though I picked him, was is he as good as he had been in years prior, because his campaign upon leaving Florida on Florida Derby Day, his last start in Florida was April 1st. He'd only run 3 times, didn't run well in his most recent down at Parks, but I think he put to rest any sort of questioning as to where he stands, and Eddie Plisa Jr. has not missed a beat at all. No matter the level, it seems like all of his horses are running.
They certainly are. He has a couple of live horses on today's card as well, and you're absolutely right. Mr. Jordan was not coming in as strong form as he had been last year, but Eddie saying in a press release, mentioned Edgard Zayas did exactly the right thing. He said he's not an easy horse to ride, but Edgard certainly did an excellent job in getting him to pull away and put the rest of the field to rest.
And a hot hand yesterday here at GPW for Edgard Zayas. 4 wins on the card, and we'll catch up with him beginning in Sunday's second race. So we'll get the formalities and the housekeeping out of the way and get you up to speed with what's on tap as far as the multi-race wagers and carryovers go. And as Acacia mentioned, just about $1,800 in the Super High 5 that'll get underway with a very competitive group of Turf Filly Mare claimers in race number 1, and that is the starting point of Sunday's early pick 5. Just a 50-cent wager. Now 11 races again today, Acacia, here. A long day, but a good one at GPW, and that means we start to chase the rainbow in race 6.
Yes, we do. About halfway through the card, race number 6, $14,000 plus in that carryover, and then we end the day with the late pick 5, 50-cent late pick 5, starting in race number 7.
No stakes on the card, but a very competitive one in which it's an optional claimer for fillies and mares at a race down the line on today's card, in which Victor Barboza Jr. has a major hand, as I noted in my analysis, has that field in his crosshairs, having Rich Mommy and Nikki Bella, and we'll talk about that power couple for Mr. Barboza Jr. in a few moments. But let's begin, and I'm curious because this first race, even though we lost a player in the 9 Brianna Bucket as an early scratch, this race is so insanely competitive. There's no way you singled here, right?
No, I used 4 actually, and you'll see in my comment, deep field to start, because that's exactly what it is. Short and sweet. Short and sweet and to the point, because I'm guessing, I guess, is the best way to put it. I think we had a major pace scratch with Brianna's Bucket, who I actually really did like as a big player in here. All along, I like Voila La Victoire, who is returning to South Florida and dropping down for Tommy Albertrani, but I think there's a lot of big players in here. Now, the biggest question in race number 2 is Night Rhythm, really just the best horse, and yes, that's how the horse's name is spelled without the H in rhythm, but he is stretching out in distance, so we'll see if he'll just send from the rail, back myself up with Knockout Ranger. Going to be using 3 deep in the 3rd race, and I'm trying to keep things affordable. I wanted to spread in the 1st race, so I'm just going to go ahead in the 4th race and single. Coronado, again, he's dropping down in class. He's been a little bit inconsistent lately, but he's got a lot of early speed, and I think was coming off of actually a very good race, and then we'll cap things off with 3.
And Coronado, again, especially, at least in my mind, with that early scratch of Sherpa in his race, is very much one of the biggest short price keys on this entire card, if not the first half, certainly the first half, as he is in for 30,000. And Ronnie and I mentioned that on Friday in talking about Vencedor, who came back for Antonio Sano and won. And even though I picked Coronado again as well after scratches, it does seem kind of like a questionable drop. But again, we'll talk about Coronado again in a few moments. Now, the first race features 8 after scratches, and there are a few scratches, key scratches on the card today as we set sail with this 7.5 furlong, $8,000 3-up filly mare Claimer. I don't think this is a race in which you're going to have an overwhelming or even clear favorite by any stretch of the imagination. And this could be a good spot for the 8 Hollywood Tomcat, who I'm sure there is, aside from the human connections, breathing a sigh of relief. I bet you she'll be relieved when they walk her onto the turf course, because Mother Nature has not been kind to the days she's been in the entry box over her last 2, with back-to-back off the turf races. Not her game, and I think any sort of questions regarding would she be as good for current trainer Barry Croft off the Claim, she put them to bed at a big price in her last turf race. I was happy then, even though I didn't have her, to see her get back in form.
Yes, she had been in very good form with trainer Chuck Simon before she was claimed, and Barry Croft did a good job with her. First off the Claim was rather disappointing, but then she sat a perfect trip back at the start of September before we did move over here to Gulfstream Park West. So her last 2 races, I think you can be forgiving for sure. Those sloppy track races were certainly not where she wanted to be. That's why I used 4 horses in this first race, because I did want to include her. Her last race, she got a 74 Beyer speed figure that she won on the turf. But I did land with the drop-down mare. As we said, the number 5, Voila La Victoire. Always a little bit of a tongue twister for all of us.
She's followed me. I could never get her name out, and I said, oh, here she is. Here she is, just to torture me and embarrass me. But
back.
It's good to see her down here for a very good guy on Tom Albertroni.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that the drop down certainly is going to be key. She even tried Graded Stakes Company at Belmont. I don't think that that's exactly where she wanted to be at all. Had been rather successful in the championship meet, running around the $16,000 level. So I think it's kind of a let's put her where we think that she can win, and Miguel Vasquez in the saddle.
All right, Miguel Vasquez back from injury, had been off for about 2 months, give or take, and returned with the winner earlier this week for trainer Joe Orsino. And I would imagine for most riders, it takes them a few days of riding competitively to get that timing and their overall fitness back in a race riding shape. But clearly, I think the best is yet to come with Miguel Vasquez as he gears up for Gulfstream Park's championship meet. Second on the card as we volley right back over to the main track in our opening dirt race. And by the way, we are fast and firm. A little muggy here, around 80 degrees on a partly sunny Sunday, November the 12th, as this 2 lifetime 6250 Claimer for 3-year-olds and up goes as the second half of the early double. Night Rhythm is definitely the horse to beat, as he has his claiming price slashed in half for trainer David Fox. Although with this barn, they're just 4 for 22 with that move. It isn't an automatic move by any means. You took the favorite. I'll try to beat him.
I did, and I used both the 1 and the 5. My biggest thing with Knockout Ranger, I know that this horse has quite a bit of speed, but so does King Power. And with the stretch out in distance, I wonder what Night Rhythm's going to do from the rail as well. So Knockout Ranger is a very good horse. I think his last race was one of his better races that we've seen lately, but he's just kind of been knocking on the door in the last couple. I think that Night Rhythm certainly showed he could go 2 turns on the turf, so that's what leads me to believe that the stretch ought to be fine and he could go 2 turns on the dirt, because he does seem pretty versatile, plus he has the drop.
Now, the distance doesn't bother me with the 5 Knockout Ranger, and he is hands down one of the early keys to this race, along with the 6 King Power. If we get the good King Power who gets brave on the engine, he's got every right to be there at crunch time, but he bombed last time out in a 5-horse field at 2 to 5. I like the fact that Knockout Ranger's been laid up since the end of September after basically running from late March up through September 21st without a break, and for the most part was fairly consistent, at least in half of his races. And I think he's just a solid fit here for 6250, and obviously in the zone Edgar was in, no qualms getting Mr. Zayas.
Oh, absolutely. He's been riding in great form lately, and those are certainly the kind of trends that you like to follow.
Let's move on to race number 3 as we just trend right back onto the turf here. 1 mile on the grass for Sunday's third race, a $12,500 3 and up Claimer, as we did lose the number 8 Make It Gold for Jason Service, and that leaves us with another big size bulky field on the turf of 10 ready to roll. And I looked at this race for a while, and the more time I spent with the PPs, I like the rider change. I ended up chalking it out with the 4 racing's my game. And it's funny, Acacia, early on in this card, we're seeing a number of well-connected drop-downs as we get closer to the championship meet. And I have a feeling that's probably the story here with Drawing Away Stable and Saffie Joseph Jr. putting this gelding bred in West Virginia in for the 12-5. He's got the speed. And again, I think Avi Medina, who at times maybe I've been a little rough on him, but all around he's really improved his entire game this fall at Gulfstream Park West. best, and I like him getting aboard.
He's been riding very well lately, and I think he does a very good job, especially taking advantage of that apprentice weight and with horses that like to be on the front end. Racing's My Game certainly fits that bill. These are connections that like to win races. I don't ever look at it as a specific, suspicious drop or any of that. But Indian Scout has a lot of speed. I saw this race as potentially having some other speed as well as Chatino to the outside. That being said, I think Racing's My Game just might be better. I'm curious. I know you have a stat on the 9 Seuss, but you didn't use him at all. But I actually really like this horse. I think that horses coming in from Presque Isle generally have been doing very well. He's a 6-time winner on the turf as it is. 3 siblings did win on the turf. Dale Capuano, I thought, had this horse in very good form, and he actually ran solidly here in Florida back in the spring during the championship meet at Gulfstream.
Now, I do think, and we'll show you a number here, with a trainer that may not be a household name. In fact, I am not that all familiar with Darren Rodriguez, but he's obviously had a big year with a fairly modest-sized barn with just under 60 starters and batting 30% for 2017. Looking at what he's accomplished off the claim, I mean, these are outrageously big numbers. I do want to see what he can do here in Florida before I kind of go all in at a short price, as this is a trainer who clearly has won a lot of races up in the Mid-Atlantic, but has not started a horse here at GPW over the last 5 years.
Yeah, I do like that this horse has been training in Florida. I know it was at Tampa, but I do think that's better than just shipping in cold from being up at Presque Isle. And like I said, I'm just going back to the running lines. He ran against Class and Cash when he was at the top of his game back in March and ran well. So a little bit of a guesswork here for sure, and it will be interesting to see how he transfers.
Oh, he is a major wild card. And, yeah, let's see what Darren Rodriguez can do here. It's good to have him in the training colony and in the entry boxes, and we'll see if he can continue that torrid win streak and high percentage. As we move back to the main track, race number 4 on the program, a 3-and-up $30,000 to $20,000 claiming race, down to a field of 6. I had picked the number 5 Sherpa. That horse is out, and that forces me, doesn't really force me. I'm happy to have the 7 Coronado again, because I thought Sherpa would give him a serious run for his money. Now, as we check out Coronado again, doing what he does best, and that is just rolling to the front and setting the pace and holding on if he's good enough, we'll backtrack to his race on October 13th, correct?
Yes, and before we start, I want to highlight the number horse to his outside. That is Player's Luck, who you can see they're actually dueling for favoritism in the wagering as we let it roll and pick it up for the quarter pole. Player's Luck did not give Coronado again a breather the entire time. On the outside, or actually on the inside, excuse me, Vencedor took advantage of the fact that right there, as he refrees, here's Vencedor coming right here. Coronado again had kind of drifted off the rail and left the rail open as again we let it roll. So his drifting made it possible for Vencedor to come up the rail and to close and get the win there. I mentioned that Coronado again had been a little bit inconsistent. This was one of his poorer races, I think, but again, he was hounded the entire way. He drifted, obviously getting a little bit leg weary. That's what I think is the biggest reason for the drop.
We'll see. The blinkers come off. There are 2 key changes today, and you get the feeling that there's a good chance, A, this horse clearly is going to be a big favorite, and B, he's likely to get claimed for the 30K.
I would think.
Because I think even taking a cursory glance at Coronado again, this is a horse that, with his early speed and the fact that he's, been a little inconsistent, but he's also kept very good company throughout the year. To me, seems worth a little more than 30K. So we'll see. Antonio Sano, a very shrewd trainer. Now, with Sherpa out, it may ultimately just boil down to a 2-horse affair as Coronado again rolls on the front end, and Francesco Appeal will be the second choice, as this horse, I've got to imagine he'll be relieved to get on dry dirt today.
I would think so. He didn't handle the slop last time. I think you can put a line through that race, put a line through the turf race. If you go back to his 7/8 victory at Gulfstream back in August, he was very game running against Illustrious Sun, who they were kind of the 2 big players that day. But again, he was taking a drop down to the $30,000 level that time. His last 2 races, he's been batting a little bit higher, so I think this is really where he's comfortable.
All right, as he meets a familiar foe Coronado. And Coronado, again, the inside 4 horses looked a little overmatched between the outside 2 and just the straight-up talent department. And I think the odds will certainly display that. As we get on to race number 5, and we're back on the turf here, just about at the halfway point on this Sunday, November 12th. 7.5 furlongs, 3 lifetime, 3 and up, filly mare claimers. Another difficult race, and to be honest, another race in which we had a major early scratch of a horse that was going to take a lot of money in the number 4, Kiss Kiss Tell Tell. Now, I am going to ride, and I'm happy to see, I'm assuming with the scratch, that Make Big Money snuck up and will cap your super in the 4th spot. I am not going to just ramble on and on why this horse looks so good. It really goes no further, aside from the fact this horse should be an okay price. I am just going with basically everything Gustavo Delgado is running, as his barn has really picked things up. They had a winner here in Friday's 9th race or 10th race with King Morrow. And consider this. Gustavo has won 5 races here at GPW over the last 30 days. From January 1st up through the middle of October, the barn had only won 8 races. So to say they're going good is a pretty big understatement.
Yeah, I actually very much agree with you there. The barn certainly was in a very cold funk, if you will, and just being very honest about the numbers. But that being said, I think that Gustavo does an excellent job. His horses always look healthy and well turned out coming to the racetrack. And Make Big Money is no exception. She's been very solid. I love that she showed a lot more early speed last time, and that's kind of what she had been doing back at the earlier part of 2017, and that's where I think she's best. Probably the stretch out in distance helped. I love that they keep her going 2 turns. She has the rail. I imagine she's going to send. There certainly is some other speed in here, but I did scratch into the number 5 Pop's Irish Rose. I had Kiss Kiss Tell Tell. But Pop's Irish Rose, I thought her win last time was very solid. And she just looks to me like a filly, and I've thought this for her last couple of races, that's just moving in the right direction. If you cross off the turf race, she's been in very solid form. I think Chuck Simon's taken his time with her and been moving her forward.
And that's what we expect from Chuck.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's not a guy that's really going to rush horses or run them if they're not doing well or they're not 100%. He's not a guy that just leads them over here just to potentially pick up a check for 3rd or 4th. So Pop's Irish Rose getting Marco Meneses, who picked up a nice stakes win. He's riding well here. Doesn't get a whole lot of short-priced opportunity, but I think he makes the most of the live horses that he's on.
And I saw on Facebook it's actually Chuck's assistant Sue's birthday.
So
nice
happy birthday. Following the great Pete Aiello, who certainly left an indelible mark in that booth yesterday, late in the card with that call of Mr. Jordan down to the wire. So we head down to the wire, and we've got Mark Cassie, a little Tyler Gaffalione teaming up, and a whole lot more when we come back here on GPW Today.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet. We are racing.
Coming down to the finish with Fort Lauderdale to catch him. They're not going to catch him. Fort Lauderdale, the winner. He went clear at the stop, and he's coming out, turning handspring. Fort Lauderdale, brilliant in the statement master. What a thriller in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Fort Lauderdale gets deep, nose and nose to the wire. Fort Lauderdale has won it.
Breeders' Cup Classic, memory lane there with Fort Larned and Mucho Macho Man, who would come back a year later to get the money in the $6 million Classic, and both standing stud at Adena Springs. Now, Acacia and Jason welcome you back to this live Sunday edition of Gulfstream West Today. And again, after a raucous Saturday here in Miami Gardens, we had some stakes races. We had a gigantic football game with the Canes versus the Fighting Irish. Things have settled down as we approach Sunday's card, and there won't be a lot of rest to be had this coming weekend.
No rest at all. As
Racetrack weekend,
that's
that
right,
is.
That's right, our weekend. We are racing Tuesday. Our first post is 12:35 p.m. We're off pretty much the whole week of Thanksgiving, just the day after racing Friday. So do note that we will be racing 6 days next week. So come on out and join us and bet some races.
Absolutely. An 8-race card on day number 32, which will be Tuesday, November 14th, as we get down to the real nitty-gritty of this 40-day fall meeting at GPW. So the action continues on, and mentioned Gaffleone and Mark Casse before the break, and they have got in a weird, and it's not weird's not the right word. This is a
yes,
real, this is a real like hodgepodge, like grab bag of maiden claimers running for 10,000. This isn't your typical maiden 10 here in South Florida. You've got some horses coming in from some really diverse situations, like my top pick, Flat Trip, who cost $100,000 plus as a yearling back in late September of 2015, yet is debuting as a late 3-year-old, if you will, for Gustavo Delgado. And then your top pick, Sail the Seas.
Yes, and we'll give you a look at my Rainbow Six ticket. I used all 3 of those horses and would have liked to use even more because, as you said, Sail the Seas was a $120,000 purchase. You have 3 six-figure horses in here for the $10,000 tag, which always makes it a bit of a head-scratcher. So as you see, $14,000 plus in the carryover. I'll use 3 deep in the 7th race. I actually really wanted to use more in there. I really like that maiden special weight. I think it's a very competitive race for the fillies on the turf. 3 deep in the 8th race as well. We mentioned Victor Barbosa Jr. He has the top 2, I think, and then Ralph Nix has the very impressive Bones coming back off the layoff as well. 2 deep in the 9th, 2 in the 10th, and 2 in the 11th. I looked long and hard for that single. I considered Miss Maserati in race number 10, but decided to back myself up and stay 43.20.
I am bummed that I like Miss Maserati today. I think I made her my best bet, but there were, I think, 3 scratches in the body of that race, and basically all 3 of them were tried and true speed horses. It looked like she was going to get a blazing pace to close down late. That might not happen, but still, with you, pretty confident she will run her race. Now, again, questions abound in a very diverse cast in an atypical, unorthodox 10K maiden claimer. Getting back to Flat Trip, I could just bore you with stats about this horse's pedigree. I don't think it really matters at this stage with this horse debuting for 10,000, but a case of me just wanting to ride the Gustavo Delgado bandwagon here, and I'm hoping he can win races 5 and 6.
I hope he has a good day for you, for sure.
If not, blame me.
I agree. This horse has been training here at Gulfstream Park West. Yes, as you said, it's a $100,000 son of Flatter. Now, my top pick is a 4-year-old gelding now, as he is coming off of a big layoff, hasn't raced since August of 2016 at Woodbine, and that was his only start. It was a productive race. It produced a couple next out winners. He's nicely bred. A big reason I did end up putting this horse on top, I looked up stats for the Mark Casse barn, and with a 180-plus day layoff with maiden claimers, it's not something they do very much of, but in the past 5 years, it's 5 for 28, 18% win, 43% of the time in the money, and a 217 ROI. So the horses that they have had this kind of layoff with, they've done a good job bringing them back.
And that's a good percentage for this barn. I mean, this is a barn that really, if they're doing well, they run.
Right.
This is not a barn that likes, and that's one of the things I love about the Casse operation, whether we're talking about a horse like World Approval or even some of the lower level claimers in the barn. They run. He is not a guy that's going to give a horse 90 days just to do it between races, and a nice little percentage there, and a very good point with Sail the Seas. As we sail the seas here at GPW and get on to race number 7, 5 more to bring you on this Sunday card, and you can't go wrong with starting any sort of pick 5, especially a late pick 5 on a weekend to boot with some maiden turf, and we've got that in spades here in the 7th as 2-year-old fillies meet in a competitive race that saw me use 3, and some high-profile barns are in the mix, to say the least, Acacia, in race number 7. I did single Miss Maserati in race number 10, and I say this lovingly, Maserati might be a little hyperbole. She's kind of like, I love my Kia Optima. I'm going to call her Miss Kia Optima. She's just solid. She's reliable. She's not that flashy, but she's been in good form. And, man, I saw fit to go really deep in the last. I really admire your courage using just, who'd you use there? The 1 and 9, I think, right? Your Rainbow 6?
Yes, I used the 1 and the 9.
Yeah, I used them, obviously, but used a couple more, including the 4 and 10 and a $24 play. Now, the 7th race, let's show, why don't we show Sluey's chosen one?
I can't believe you didn't use her at all, but we'll show Sluey's chosen one. Last time, she was a much improved 2-year-old filly for trainer John Vincent. Unfortunately, his splash rules didn't fire as much last time as we had thought, and I'm just going to let it go. Tee Up is on the inside, the number 3 in the red cap, and Sluey's chosen one is in the green colors on the outside, and these two put on a show. Sluey's chosen one made Tee Up work for it the whole way. Now, this was a race where you had a couple big favorites. You had a Pletcher horse in here. You had the big favorite So Fresh for Carlo Vaccarezza that just did not fire, and these two I thought put forth a big race. This is a filly who's really found her home on the turf. I thought physically she looked ultra impressive last time and the time before that, so I ended up just putting her right on top.
You bring up some good points, and she was game. I would note, at least to me, nobody gained ground on the top two. It did not seem like a race where anybody was making a big impact from off the pace, and I thought there were a few new shooters in this race that looked just a little more interesting, even though I like John Vincent a lot and certainly respect your opinion. And I see you've got my top pick, the number 4, Bristol's Brook, second, as this gray filly by Speightstown tries the turf for trainer Mike Maker. Let's show you a little pedigree background on this filly who's got one of the best stallions in the game. We love Speightstowns, and I was actually going to make the first comment with the Blewitz Bullets that Speightstown is the man, but we'll just say it. And the dam was pretty good. She was 5 for 20 in her career, won a couple of times as a 2-year-old. She's been a prolific producer as well, as 4 or 5 siblings are winners, and you've got a couple of brothers and sisters that have won on the turf. That gives me some confidence here that Bristol's Brook is going to run well, and you've got some positive maker stats. I mean, this is a guy, when you start to really hone in on his turf starters, and there are hundreds of them over the last 5 years, he has got some overwhelming stats, including what I find. First off the claim, first time on the turf, 7 for 29, and that obviously bodes pretty well here for the 4 Bristol's Brook.
It certainly does, and you mentioned the pedigree. It's a good pedigree. She's also the full sister to multiple stakes winner, multiple grade place horse named Coastline, who did win on the turf as well. So I certainly like her. I respect the connections. I also use the number 2, Newman's Fast Girl. I just like the look of her last time out. I thought she ran a very solid race in her debut. She does have to step up into special weight, and I don't think this is a necessarily cushy spot for her. But a little trivia. I know you love this kind of stuff. Steve Dwoskin's assistant is named Paul Newman, so this is a horse named after her.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
For him, rather, Newman's Fast Girl. So he's a big fan of her. I know the barn does think highly of her, and she's just been training forwardly.
A lot of horses down here in South Florida named for either people that work in the industry or are hardcore racing fans and horse players. I think of Taco Wayne, Barry Carafin. I met, by the way, last weekend on Breeders' Cup Saturday, and he had a pair of binoculars during training and was watching his horses. Horse spotter Carl.
Oh, I met him too. Yeah, he's
great guy.
He's great.
Big fan of horse spotter Carl. So, all right, best of luck to Newman's Fast Girl in a good-looking 2-year-old maiden turf race for the fillies in race number 7. Now, we'll move it along. We've got race number 8 forthcoming, a $44,000 allowance optional claimer for the 3-and-up fillies and mares. And again, Victor Barboza Jr., Keisha and I have his horses boxed in the exacta, and this race just centers around going in. It's not a layup for either Rich Mommy or Nikki Bella, but I would not be shocked, and clearly you wouldn't either, if these fillies just ran 1-2.
Oh, I would not be shocked at all. And I looked at this, and I was kind of at the point where I had figured out I wanted to use the Barboza horses, and then I was just like, which one do I put on top? And I ended up going with Nikki Bella, and it's interesting because the two of them in here have kind of a similar running style. If you look back at their recent races, both Rich Mommy and Nikki Bella kind of broke sharply and then were able to settle back as it looked like another horse kind of was intent on the lead. And I liked that. But I thought that Nikki Bella, who was just so impressive in her first two, she didn't run as well on the sealed sloppy track last time. She certainly didn't run badly. But she was able to kind of take back and move forward and keep on running and beat the likes of Worth Avenue and Working Carol Kay even in her debut. I think that she's kept some very solid company. Rich Mommy certainly is the more seasoned.
She is more seasoned. She's got more experience, and I think she's run a little bit better. Now, granted, she's had more chances than Nikki Bella, and again, more seasoning and experience, but I do believe of the two, at least going in, I'm viewing her as slightly better than her stablemate. I am not in love with the inside post by any means, and this is something that is likely to come up as far as Victor talking strategy to Jaramillo, who's on the rail with the one Rich Mommy, and Edgar, who's on the two Nikki Bellas. They both have basically, I'd say, a comparable amount of early speed, but just looking at what Rich Mommy's done really since the end of May through her last race towards the end of September, just so consistent and dominant in the races that she won.
She has been very, very consistent and very impressive too. She's certainly the goods, and I agree. I kind of wonder if her hand will be forced a little bit from the inside post. Now, the other player certainly does look to be Bones, whose really only poor performance was when she was third behind Gallia, who did go on to win a stake at Sunland Park after that for Todd Pletcher. She's a very nice horse for sure, but she is coming off the layoff, and with the layoff and winners last time out, not the most productive move for this barn.
And first time for her, actually, let's see, there's two older fillies and mares in the race. Most of them are 3-year-olds. She had been in just age-restricted races for 3-year-olds when we last saw her over the wintertime during the championship meet. We'll see. A good test for Bones, no doubt, coming back for Top Connections. As we keep the pace going here, and just 3 more to bring you. 11 races today. Woo. Race number 9, Mile the 16th on the turf. 2 lifetime 3-and-up claimers set to go. And the 8-horse Perp, hands down, I think if Eddie Plesa Jr., you asked him to say, all right, got a horse coming in from Jersey who spent the summer up at Monmouth, ran once over the fall at Meadowlands. Handpick your field here on the turf for 8,000. This is the kind of spot I think if you're training Perp or in that camp, you would like to assemble.
I would
right?
certainly think so. She's coming off of, or he is, excuse me, coming off of a very good race last time at the Meadowlands. He did break his maiden across town at Gulfstream Park back in December before a layoff and running it in Monmouth after that. So I just think he's in the right spot, especially with the scratch of Ciorno, who on the drop I thought was going to be a big player. But I'm intrigued by the horse that you like too, and Smart Return. If you cross off the off the turf race, he's been very good lately.
And he's been very good on the turf, which is obviously the surface he's going to get to run on today. And we're going to start to run into it, I think, on a fairly regular basis coming up over the next few cards. Horses, at least in my estimation, that were against a turf course for a good few days. I've got the list in the office, and November 4th happened to be one of those days just last weekend in which pace and early speed types were close to unbeatable on this Gulfstream West turf course. And for him to finish where he finished from where he was earlier, that was a giant effort, and I think if he can run back to that off, I think a bias compromise trip, he should run really well, and it gives me some confidence that you saw the same thing and have got him in the mix.
Yes, I certainly liked that effort last time, and he was far out of it too and came running. So that was a big run from him under Evaldo Santana.
He was over at the casino early on, then decided to join the race, right? All right, race number 10 here, final dirt race on this Sunday, November the 12th, day number 31 at GPW. Field of 8 in these 3-and-up filly and mare $10,000 claimers. There are 8 filly and mares in this one, and scratch the 6 and the 8, and you and I heading to the outside, the 11 Miss Maserati, who's just been sharp. And let's give you a little nugget here with trainer Ruben Gracida, and I do think this is a stat, even though it is very selective in the time department. It's only the past year, but this is a guy that just hasn't been training all that long on his own, and the fact that he's just done so well at Gulfstream Park West over the last calendar year makes me believe, well, this is a smaller operation who probably points to this meet and wants to have all their horses as good as they could possibly be. They always want that, of course, but really as far as running in lower level claimers, I think Ruben Gracida's done a great job with the stock he has.
He did, and he had a lot of nice runners actually throughout the summer too. They did kind of fly under the radar. My Third Eye comes to mind too. There was another scratch in here of the rail runner who's also his and Loving Valentina, who's been very good lately. Now, I think on the outside, the scratches to her inside actually does make it a little bit easier for Miss Maserati, because I think that she's actually clearly a better horse when she can show speed. If she was breaking from post 11, I think her hand would kind of be forced from the outside. She could kind of get a little bit comfier, get into the race a little bit easier because she's shown a lot more speed since they added the blinkers 3 starts back. Ventina was very good last time and backed that up with another
Definitely.
win.
No, I was wrong the other day. I thought Ventina was pretty vulnerable, and she proved me wrong. She's turned into a beast on the dirt. And again, I think that flatters Miss Maserati. Let's hope that's the case. So we picked the 11th in race number 10, or the 11 horse in race number 10, and we'll get on to it. I'm sorry my program keeps attacking your iPad. Let's put this under here as we finish off the day, the 11th race. I thought this race was basically centered around complete chaos. I could come up with 5, 6, 7 horses that I thought could win the race. So give me a little Antonio Sano, who seems to be winning about a race a day, if not 2 races a day at GPW.
And it seems like he's been on fire lately. Now, this is not one of the horses that's based at Gulfstream Park West. This one is based across town at Gulfstream, but he's been firing bullets. And I don't know if you, but I went back and watched the head-on of this start, and it was literally like the definition of bumper cars for this horse. I mean, he was knocked around every which way and just totally out of it at the start. Had a little bit of late run, but actually on this kind of layoff on the turf with maiden claimers, the barn is 0 for 18 in the past 5 years, which I found surprising. But I do think that that this horse is coming back very strong. I landed on one that's just dropping in class, another layoff horse in Platinum, of course, for Ralph Nix. First time Ralph Nix. Plenty of turf pedigree in this one, and I think maybe turning back to sprinting and dropping in class will be key.
In fact, a few key layoffs in here. I mean, layoffs really take the cake as far as the major players. Not only our 2 top picks, but Deneb, who we've got in the mix, who's coming back off about a layoff of 5.5 months for Elizabeth Dobles. Looking forward to hearing your expertise, how they look out here in the GPW walking ring. We're in the shade beneath those tall sand pines, and we've got a lot more action coming your way, including Chris Griffin, who's in the booth today, and he's coming your way with Sunday Scratches and Changes.